Never trust your kids with a crazy uncle to go fishing unless you want them to get hooked. But anyways, my nephew invited me to join he and his family down on Sanibel Island for some boating and fishing. Unfortunately, at the time of this trip, Sanibel, its beaches, and surrounding waters were being attacked by red tide. And to make things even more challenging, the Army Corps of Engineers has released billions of gallons of blue-green algae-laden water down the Caloosahatchee River. To avoid the algae-infected waters, my grandnephew and I headed over to Creation State Park, which is on the Estero River. The Estero River is far enough away from the Caloosahatchee River not to be affected by the blue-green algae flow, and also the strength of the current from the Estero River keeps a red tide from coming upstream. Once we stopped, it didn't take my grandnephew long before he hooked up into his first fish. Our target species for the day was mangrove snapper. We were using a popping cork, and underneath the popping cork we had a single split shot weight, and then about a foot below that we had a number 2 bait hook, and that's what we attached our shrimp to. This young guy is my soulmate. He really enjoys fishing. The next day brought an offshore breeze, and we decided to launch out of Punta Rassa. Amazingly, because of the fear of the red tide, there were no other boats in the water. We took the inside passage to Matlacha, and then up around the northern tip of Bokeelia, and then turned south to Cabbage Key. Cabbage Key is home to the Tarpon Lodge and restaurant. The Calusa Indians first inhabited this island around 100 BC, and the Tarpon Lodge was built in 1936. Jimmy Buffett made this place famous with his Cheeseburger in Paradise song. Another tradition is to leave $1 pinned to the roof or walls to ensure that you'll return here someday. And I'm looking forward to this cruise next trip. After lunch, take a hike up the 60-foot tall water tower to burn off some calories. The view up here is one of the best in Pine Island Sound. On your way back to the boat, you'll most likely run into one of the island's resident gopher tortoises. When we got back on the boat, we could start to see the afternoon thunderstorm starting to build. So we headed the boat back to the ramp at Punta Rassa. Along the way, we saw large schools of bait fish and dolphin, and in the distance from the channel, you can see the Pine Island fish houses. And our trip ended just before the afternoon storm set in. The next day was a guys-only fishing trip. And even with red tide in the area, the fishing for mangrove snapper was fast and furious. The red tide had caused a habitat consolidation, meaning that there is fewer places that the fish could survive. To find areas that would hold fish, I looked for salinity levels, looking for something at least 20 parts per million or above. Current flow is really important, and it's better to have a dropping tide because that dropping tide will push the red tide further offshore. Wind direction is always good if it's blowing offshore. And then structure is something that is always key because fish like protection or an easy place to sit in ambush to wait for a meal. And speaking of meals, bait fish will be a key indicator if that area is healthy. And then finally, the birds will help you find the bait fish. Once you've found the right spot, a good way to keep the fish active is to throw small amounts of chum in the water. Today I was using small chunks of shrimp, and these two kept me in stitches as I was waiting for the chum.
We found the penis, so you grab it and you keep on touching it.
Fish petting was also a favorite pastime. With all the energy expended on fishing, chumming, and petting, snack time was a big hit. And once the batteries had been recharged, the lines were back in the water, the bait was quickly depleted, and before you knew it, the last fish was coming into the boat. Thanks to all my subscribers for watching, and if you don't subscribe, please join now so you don't miss the next adventure. And a special shout out to my crew for making this video possible.